Today I'm just gonna remove the rest of the power steering system. I already took this pump off in the bracket so I could repair this crack in the engine block, so that's done. Now I'm gonna finish with the whole power steering situation and just remove the reservoir as well as the pump and the lines so I can take it all apart, rebuild it, all new gaskets, seals, refurbish the system basically. Just make sure it can survive another 200,000 miles. So yeah, I'm gonna remove all that. I'll be right back. So it's just 3 12mm bolts that hold the reservoir on. You can see how filthy it is. So I'm gonna go in the house, grab a trash bag and just set this inside of it and then disconnect the lines right here and here. That way we don't have like such a big oil mess. So I got the first side off, got it draining into the bag. Actually didn't spill anything. That's a first. Gonna get the other side off and then just take this out of here. So I drained this out into another bag. Yeah, I got the reservoir here. I'm just gonna leave the reservoir and the power steering pump attached, but this high pressure line that goes to the cooler, I'm just gonna remove that. That way we can just take everything out. Luckily you had this 27mm wrench and then there's a 17mm right here. Just undo that and then you're home free. So just took the coolant overflow reservoir out for now. Just want to be able to get to these two rubber lines that go to the cooler for the power steering pump. There's one that goes into the steering box and then one that goes to the pump. So these are both rubber. No special fittings on the end of either of them, and they're just hoses with clamps. So those are going to get replaced. I don't know if the high pressure line, I don't know if they still make it, but I'll see if I can find one. I do have a replacement line from Toyota that connects the reservoir to the pump, so I have that one. So I basically need to find 3 other hoses. These 2 will be easy to find because they're just generic hoses, but the high pressure one, I don't know yet. Could reuse it, but it's what, 30 plus years? I don't know about that. Okay, well, I'm gonna clean up, remove those hoses. Well, I guess remove the hoses and then clean up all the oil spill. We'll go from there, but I think after that, probably call it a wrap for the day. I might clean the power steering pump and the reservoir, just clean them best as I can. That way it's not a pain to work on them. And then I might call it a wrap, so we'll see. So I basically cleaned everything, all the hose clamps, all the hardware, just took it all apart just so we have a clean slate to work with. This is the reservoir, clean that up. The sticker on the front, it's all worn off, especially from cleaning it, and on the top. But I found some reproduction stickers, so ordered those. It was like 10 bucks plus shipping. To me, it's worth it. Just looks weird without writing on it. Yeah, that'll be here in the near future. So this is all clean and ready to go. Now I'm gonna rebuild the power steering pump. So I bought a kit from 22RE Performance and they know what they're doing. Anything 22RE related. So I know 100% sure that this is like, these are all the correct parts. So I just wanna open the kit and just see what it is that we're replacing. It's probably just a ton of different O-rings and probably like a front seal that'll be replaced. I'm sure that's in there too. So we're just gonna open the kit, take a look, and then probably just disassemble this. So yeah, this is pretty much what I expected. Bunch of O-rings, snap rings. This is the front seal for right in between here. Just seals the shaft. Yeah, next step, just gonna totally disassemble this and take pictures. I've rebuilt a couple pumps before on a different vehicle, and they are complex. There's a lot of parts in them. They're easy to put together because you're just like on a workbench. So if you just take pictures and make a video of every little part, it's not that bad. Biggest mistake I ever made was not taking pictures and then just putting it back together. I remember I put together a pump, put it back on the car, and it just was blowing like bubbles in the reservoir. So I didn't have pictures to reference, so I had to go find another pump and take that apart and reference that to get the original one put back together right. It was just a matter of flipping one part over, if I remember correctly. But yeah, we're not gonna make that mistake. We're just gonna calmly approach this, disassemble it. I'll probably take the front pulley off first. You got to take a vice grip. You can see somebody's already done that. I think I might have done that. I don't remember when, but you take a vice grip there to stop this from spinning and then take this 19mm bolt off. Or there's not. Anyhow, so I'll be right back with this taken apart. First things first, we're gonna remove the shaft seal right here. I think I have a seal puller, but you can also just like screw a screw into here. It's rubber, and then just use pliers to kind of like pull it out, but don't gouge the mating surfaces. So I removed the cam, and I'm just making notes of the orientation of all these pieces. So this goes like so around the rotor. This big hole lines up with that one, and this one lines up with that one. This slides through both of those to lock it all together. And This is the other side of the cam. There's a little mark here. So that's how we know that that's the bottom. So it goes like this. Yeah, for me at least, I don't know how other people rebuild power steering pumps, but it doesn't make any sense to remove these little veins and like examine them and figure out which side goes where. Because there is a rounded off side. On this side, it's pretty much square, like the angles are sharp. There's no point trying to recognize that, because I think you should just leave it all as one unit, because all these little pieces are worn with respect to where they're seated now for like the past 200,000 miles. So I was able to transplant the rotor with all the veins intact. I dropped one of them, but I know exactly where that goes and I know the orientation of it. So this is just the way I'm doing it. Like I said, I have no idea what the pros do, but the rounded off side goes towards this face. So not only do the veins have to face a specific way in terms of the edges, but there's also two different ways you could put that in with that information. So you have to rely on these witness marks. You can see there's there's like two different shades of metal there on one side. On this side, it's just one consistent color. If ever you drop one of these veins, not only do you have to pay attention to the rounded side in terms of which way it faces, but there's two different ways you can put it in. So just look at the adjacent veins. You can see the two different colors right there. That's your witness mark. Now this vein wouldn't go in this direction. It would go in like this with the rounded part facing the outside. So it would go like this with the witness mark facing us here. So it would go like that. You can see we have two different shades on this side, two different shades on that side. Now all these are the same in this direction. Now if you drop two of them and you don't know which one goes where, probably not the end of the world. I just would personally leave it as one unit if you can. Yeah, I'm just gonna put this rotor back in when we're done rebuilding it. All right, so to remove this and this 27mm nut, you're gonna have to either leave the pump on the vehicle and have it attached to the bracket. That way you can get enough force, or you can like screw the pump itself to like a sturdy worktop or piece of wood or something like that. That way you can get enough leverage. So yeah, that's how I got this guy off as well as this guy. Yeah, so let me just continue disassembling. Same thing with this other side of the pump. To get this seal out, I drilled a hole. Well, first I screwed this whole thing down to a heavy piece of wood so I could work on it. So I just used like a nut and a wood screw, and same thing here. Put a hole in it, and then now coming in with the seal puller, should be able to yank this thing off. Yeah, so not too bad. Yeah, so in order to get this thing to sit flat, had to drill some holes in this wood so I can stick it in. Okay, so gonna remove this 27mm nut, or whatever this is. That piece of brass, pretty sure you can remove. There's one O-ring here and then one right here. I'm gonna dump this out. The spring in here that goes like so. I'm just gonna put that like there. So this came out of here. There's one snap ring in here. Gonna remove that real fast. Snap ring pliers, gotta have those. So once that snap ring is out of there, I hit it out the other way. I pushed it down through the barrel here and then out this side. Either way, there's an O-ring on it you gotta replace. So yeah, when we go to put it back together, this just goes like this. Probably just gonna put the new snap ring in place when we go to put it back together, and then come around with this with the new O-ring on and just stuff it down inside and push it all the way back against that snap ring like we just saw. So we'll put that off to the side. So we got this, we got this, we got this, we got this. I don't know. The bearing has to be pressed in. I don't have the wherewithal to do that. I don't have the tools to do that, so might just leave it. It feels fine. So to be able to remove this, I just put some pliers in here and just gently pry it a little bit, and it pops right out. I think there's just one O-ring that is what's holding it in, and then there's a spring underneath. So yeah, just that one O-ring and then the spring. I think that's as far as you can take this guy apart. I'm gonna go back into the kitchen and just examine everything. I think we've got it all the way taken apart. So this is just one piece of metal now. There's nothing else connected to it. I'm gonna clean this out probably tomorrow. I'm gonna just organize everything and just lay it out and see all the things that need to be replaced and make sure we have everything. So upon further inspection, I don't know, I'm not exactly liking how this thing is feeling. There's a little bit of roughness every so often. At first glance, it seemed okay, but I'm gonna replace the bearing, so I gotta order one and keep this thing apart for a lot longer than I intended, but I just want it done right. So first step is to remove the snap ring in there. I already did that. It's this one. So once you take this front seal off, you then get access to this snap ring. So you can't take the shaft off with the bearing first because that snap ring is in there. You have to take the seal off, then the snap ring, and then you can tap this shaft out from the backside. So I'm gonna heat this up and then go ahead and tap that out. And then within that is another type of snap ring that holds the bearing onto the shaft. So heated it up with a heat gun, just pressing it out, or tapping it out rather, just using a mallet. It's not in there that tight, so just about got it out. So here we have it. We got the shaft out, and then you can see the snap ring right there that gets replaced. So I'm gonna take that off carefully and then see if I can tap the bearing out. I don't know how pressed in it is, maybe not that tight given there is a snap ring, so we'll see. There's like a considerable amount of play in it. It wasn't really noticeable when it was put together. So I just got in there with my snap ring pliers and just basically pried that apart. So yeah, I'm gonna take the ring all the way off and then yeah, we'll see if that comes off. So got that snap ring off. So to remove the bearing, I'm just gonna basically tap the shaft through using this piece of wood. I just happen to have this big piece of wood that I'm going to the dump with. So I'm gonna tap that in. Hopefully it just pops right through. We'll see. So this is as far as you can take this pump apart. We've got the bearing off now with the spent snap ring. So now I'm just gonna explain which pieces get replaced. So the bearing gets replaced if you're doing that, this snap ring, so that takes care of this whole shaft assembly. In order to take that off, you have to pull this seal first. We can pull that like we talked about. Underneath that is this snap ring. Yeah, now going around, there's no O-rings up here or anything like that. This is the O-ring that goes here and seals these two halves together. And then within this housing, this piece of the housing, this gets replaced. Yeah, that piece of brass goes right in here, the smaller one. Now coming down here, this has two O-rings, a bigger one and a smaller one. So the smaller one goes there, the bigger one goes here. And that, if we're coming around to the housing, goes right here. So you got those two O-rings. And then the other piece of brass goes in this piece, so that just pops right in. It's the bigger of the two. And then this big O-ring goes around here. There is also a secondary O-ring that you might miss if you don't look close enough, but it's right in here, so that gets removed. And then this, I don't think I showed a video or a clip of me removing this, but this just mates right here with a 10 millimeter bolt. And then there's one O-ring right there that gets replaced. Now this little piece slides all the way through here. When you go to reassemble, you're gonna wanna start from here and slide it all the way through with a new O-ring, and the snap ring in the back will prevent it from going all the way through. So you probably wanna put that snap ring in first. So that gets replaced, the O-ring gets replaced. This seal gets replaced, of course. This is mangled. I think that's about it. So let's count all the parts that get replaced. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12, and then 13, and then 14. So that's 14 parts total. Now coming over here, we've got a similar setup with the new parts. We got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then the bearing would be 14. So got all the correct parts. Now it's time just to clean everything up like we already talked about. I'm just gonna leave this intact. There's no point taking it apart. And then, yeah, I'm gonna clean the housing a lot, get all the grime and stuff off, and then probably mask it all off and just paint it. We'll just do like a semi-gloss black. Yeah, we'll wait for this bearing to arrive, and then, yeah, we'll just assemble the whole thing. Also, I cleaned up the reservoir of the system, and then I got the correct stickers on there, so looks a lot better. Cleaning up all these parts. A lot of people have parts cleaners and stuff like that, but once again, you know, just a man in the kitchen cleaning some nuts and bolts. I don't know, it takes forever, but it's kind of therapeutic. Yeah, almost done. So I found this bearing, not too hard to find, $9. So it's a 40 millimeter outer diameter, Yeah, then the inner diameter is 17 millimeters, and then the overall thickness is 12 millimeters. So basically this is what you want to buy. Still made in Japan, NSK, the original. Got the pump housing all painted up, just removing the masking. Okay, so the time has come. This bearing showed up in the mail. Just double checked, it's identical. So we're gonna go ahead and put this thing back together. First things first, we'll take this new bearing, put it on the shaft, and then use that new snap ring. Okay, so for this snap ring, I was able to use just your typical snap ring pliers to pry that open and get it on the shaft. Not easy. I just gotta slide it down a little further and it'll be on. Yeah, just takes some finesse for sure. All right, so we're gonna put the shaft back in this side of the housing. I'm gonna get that in there, tap it down, get it flush, and then we'll put the snap ring on and then the front seal. So let me put this in first. All right, so I just press that down. Shouldn't take that much force really. And then now you can see the little groove for the snap ring. So I'm gonna put that in. Okay, that's installed. Next up, yeah, the front seal. For me, I like to put a little bit of Permatex just around the outside diameter, just a little tiny bit, and then put the seal on. Done that on a couple pumps and never had any problems, and that's just a trick I know a lot of people use. So we'll go ahead and get that ready, and then I'm gonna find a socket that fits the perimeter of this thing pretty good so we can tap it in square. Okay, got that set up. I'm gonna put it on lightly, and then using this socket, we're gonna tap it in. Okay, I got it lightly started. I just connected the two halves of the pump just to be able to tap this in nice. So we got this pretty vertical, not 100%, but enough to tap it in. So I'll just come here with this socket and then I'll tap it in. So I'll be right back with that. Okay, that's taken care of. I got it in there as flush as I can get it. I'd give it about like a 99.5%. It's about as good as you can do on the counter. So super happy with that. Usually those types of seals are not easy to put in, whether that's like an axle seal or front crank seal. They just never want to go in perfectly straight, but this one, super stoked with that. So that's done. Yeah, now it's time to put the two halves together. Next up, we're gonna put this piece back inside this barrel with a new O-ring and a new snap ring at the end. So yeah, I'm gonna put the snap ring in first and then slide this all the way down with that new O-ring. Okay, so that's done. Next up, the spring goes back in like so, and then this piece goes in with that part sticking up. So I'm gonna lube that up, put it in, and yeah, just with every O-ring and every piece, obviously lube it up and then put it together. This power steering system calls for Dexron 2, but it doesn't exist anymore. So this is technically Dexron 3. So this is basically what you want for this, you know, 80s Toyota pickup power steering system. But without further ado, I'm gonna put this in. Okay, so once you got that in, it's got a little bit of play to it. So basically you have to push it down as you screw this in. And then this gets two O-rings, one here, one here. So let me put those on and then we'll screw it down. And this one's best just to set it here first. And then this other one, just put it on the tip. Okay, next up, gonna put this back on the housing. This is just for one of the lines. So it's just one O-ring and then this 10mm bolt to hold it together. This goes like so, with the O-ring, screw it together. All right, next up, we're gonna put this back in this side of the housing. So there's just one spring, just goes in like that. And then this goes in with a new O-ring all the way around the side. That's the big O-ring, and then this smaller one goes inside of here. So let me put those two on and then put it into this housing. So once you put this back in, you can push it down and it stays in place because of that interference fit with the O-ring. So once you got that in. So yeah, I've been referring to my video here. Next up, we're just gonna rebuild the rotor and cam kind of assembly in this half of the pump. So this little diamond mark faces down. So we're gonna put that in and make sure these holes line up with the holes in here. But with that information, you still could put this in two different ways. But if you look really close, you can see that diamond mark basically worn itself into this material and the little piece of the circle here. So that lets us know it for sure goes like this. Okay, next the rotor goes in. There's only two ways to put that in. You could put it in like this or flip it over, but if you carefully look on the other side, that little mark lets you know that that goes down towards that, I guess this other little mark. Maybe that's how they were identifying this when they built it. I don't know, but either way, I know that this one goes down. Okay, so there we have that. That's exactly how it came apart. Okay, last up is that O-ring that seals the two halves together. So I put that on with some fluid. And then there's also two ways this can go on too, but I noticed there was some marks when I was taking it apart, so I didn't bother to index the two halves. So looking back on my video here, you can see there's some dots here. Those dots basically just face towards this 27mm nut, just in that direction. So we've got the nut here, and then even after painting this, you can still see those dots right here. That being said, this basically goes together just like this. I gotta line all three of those up and put it together. So I'm gonna put the camera down and go ahead and do that. Okay, got that put together. Now I'm just sneaking the two halves slowly down just to make sure that O-ring seals perfectly. So I'm just gonna finish tightening that, and then basically all that's left is to put the pulley back on with the lock washer and the nut. The only other thing is this piece of brass. I'm gonna wait till we go to actually screw the hose fitting on so that this stays inside and pushes it down and seals it properly. Okay, that is a wrap. So this thing is fully rebuilt. Tomorrow I'll go put it back on the car and reinstall everything. I got all new hoses. So yeah, we'll go ahead and take care of that, but that's a wrap for the night. Okay, so I finally got the correct high pressure power steering line. As you can see, this the shape of the hard line is identical to the new one. Now, yeah, I don't know, it's hard to get parts sometimes because I was given this at first. That's not right. So that's going back. Yeah, so basically I've used everything I can to try to get this nut off. Can't get it off. I used heat. I used PB Blaster for weeks. I don't know, can't get it off. Basically, I'm just gonna cut this hard line and then just put a socket on it and it should come right off. Okay, got that removed. Didn't want to cut all the way through with the Dremel. Don't really want to contaminate the system with any like shavings of metal, so I just cut around it a bit and then just bent that shit off and it just sheared off. So that worked out, and then we got, looks like a spider gonna make a home in there. All right, so we got that on there, just refilling the system. I'm just gonna go ahead and turn the steering wheel lock to lock. From what I researched, you got to do that like 20 times at least to start. That way we can start pumping some air out before we fire this thing up, because if you fire that pump up dry, it'll just burn up basically. So okay, new air filter. Got the belt back on, just gotta tighten that down with this bolt and then lock it down with that nut. And yeah, then we'll put the air cleaner on. Then I think the engine's like fully put back together finally. We have power steering and there's no sounds or anything. And I didn't even really bleed the system that well. Just went lock to lock before I turned this thing on like 20 times. Fired it up. It feels great. Let's check the level. Went down a little bit. It's not empty though. So yeah, that confirms we rebuilt the pump correctly. That's always a good thing. Okay, so we just did a little test drive and power steering works perfectly. So that's awesome. We rebuilt it correctly. If anybody's struggling with rebuilding the pump or confused, just follow along with the video precisely. I feel like I've documented it very well. It's not that hard. You just have to take your time. I wouldn't do it all in one shot. You need a chance for your brain to like cool off every now and again. It's hard to pay attention to everything and make sure you're not screwing up if you're just sitting down trying to knock it all out in one shot. I would definitely recommend recording the disassembly, and then when you go to put it back together, it's a piece of cake. But yeah, that concludes the video. If anybody needs help, just comment down below. But yeah, thanks for watching.